Hello, this week we're learning about the elves and the shoemaker. Once upon a time there lived a talented shoemaker. He lived with his wife in a little house above a little shop in a little town above the rolling hills. From far and wide people came to buy their beautiful shoes. The shoemaker would spend all day drawing, cutting and stitching, filling the shop with wonderful shoes. His wife would spend all day helping, searching and choosing, finding the perfect pair of shoes for each customer. Each person would leave with a pair of shoes that fitted and suited them so perfectly it was as if the shoes had been made just for them. The years passed happily, and as they passed, the shoemaker grew older. But as he grew older, his fingers did too. He could no longer work as quickly as he had once been able to. Soon a day came when they sold their last pair of shoes. The shoemaker could only afford enough leather to make one last pair. As the sun was setting, he carefully laid out the last of his material. He cut out the pattern, paying attention to every last detail. Then he left the work on his table and blew out his candle. Together the shoemaker and his wife climbed to bed with heavy limbs but faithful hearts. At the crack of dawn, the shoemaker got up and went straight to work. But the leather had gone. In its place there sat a pair of beautifully sewn, immaculately crafted brand new shoes. They were flawless. The shoemaker was amazed and could only stare and admire the delicate work. The stitching was so fine, it was as if it had been crafted by magic. That day the shoemaker's wife sold the shoes for twice the price she would normally get. The couple were overjoyed. The shoemaker went straight out and bought twice as much leather as the day before. He cut it out and they went to bed feeling encouraged and inspired. The next morning the shoemaker went down to his workshop with a spring in his step. But when he got there, he was amazed to see not one, but two extraordinary pairs of brand new shoes. Before lunchtime, both pairs had been sold for more than they had ever imagined possible. The shoemaker went out and bought enough leather to fill the shop with shoes once more. And for the rest of the day, he carefully cut out the leather. That night, the shoemaker and his wife decided to hide and watch. They would wait and discover who it was that was helping them so kindly. They crept behind a curtain and silently waited. As the clock struck 12, they heard the sound of distant voices singing, first softly, but getting closer. Then, in the dim light, they saw a group of tiny little elves. They were dressed in ragged clothes, their tiny feet completely bare. With perfect grace and the lightest touch, the elves seized the leather, the needles and the thread, and stitched and sewed and worked their nimble little fingers so quickly it was enchanting. When all the work was done, the elves clapped their hands and sang and danced in a merry circle, skipping around the shoes with glee. Such cheerful creatures had never been seen. Such joyful singing had never been heard. Such handsome shoes had never been made. There were now enough shoes to fill the shop again. The shoemaker and his wife knew they had to do something to show how grateful they were. They had an idea. They worked all day long, drawing, cutting and sewing, until finally, when the sun set, their work was complete. Late that night, they went back to their old hiding place and quietly waited. As the clock struck 12, they saw the elves in their ragged old clothes dance into the shop. But when they reached the table, their singing suddenly stopped, as it was replaced with excited chatter and squeals of joy. On the table lay a tiny little outfit for each of them, and a pair of shoes each too. When they were dressed, the elves began to sing. They danced, admired each other, and giggled and squealed. How fine they all looked! The couple watched with smiles of pride as the elves, still giggling and dancing, took off into the night. The shop was flourishing again, filled with beautiful shoes and excited customers, and the shoemaker and his wife lived happily once more. But from then on, once in a while, when the shoemaker had a little spare leather and a little spare time, he would make a pair of tiny shoes and leave them out for the elves. And sure enough, once in a while, there would be a little surprise on the shoemaker's table in the morning. Enjoy your home learning this week. See you soon.